Yes, hello everybody, and welcome to Full Course Yellow. If you're coming here straight from Channel 31, hope you enjoyed our look back at our time in our 48 hours in Inner Mongolia from quite a few years ago now. Once again, it was one of those weekends where not a lot of local stuff happened, so we decided to go back and have a look at some stuff from the past. And what a weekend that was! It was that was unbelievable. So I hope you enjoyed that. If you're joining us on the In Pit Lane YouTube channel or on Facebook, welcome to. If you're watching live, also if you're listening to us on the podcast, few people are starting to download the podcast now. You're welcome. I mean that's great. So I hope you enjoy the chat. Joining us tonight are a lot of the most of the usual suspects. We've got Stuart, we've got Chris, Richard, Peter, and of course Doc. So welcome to everybody, and we'll get underway fairly soon with some comments from you as well. So thank you to everybody for joining us once again. So I suppose we talk about what should we talk about first? Let's say Formula One. Everything's coming back, and this weekend a new livery. It's going to take a bit of getting used to this weekend because we've got the Red Bull and AlphaTauri are going to pay tribute to Honda. This was, of course, going to be the weekend of the Japanese Grand Prix, and they had planned to do special Honda tribute liveries for both of those for the Japanese Grand Prix. But unfortunately, that of course not taking place, been replaced by the race at Turkey, and so they're going to run the livery there. And as you can see,
it's a white bull.
It is. It's a white. It's not a Red Bull. It's a white bull.
White
yeah. So I think that it looks good. It'll take a bit of, as I said, take a bit of getting used to. But yeah,
I'm engrossed by it already. I reckon it's fantastic. I'm not sure what the sponsors think, but I think it's the white. Obviously, exasperates the Oracle, the Citrix, all the Infidium, the Mobile One. It stands out, I suppose, there, and it brings about some beautiful. What obviously the cars we've been able to see with the Haas versions, but because they're more of a white version too with Mazepin and Schumacher, but the white stands out. It accentuates the lines a lot more of the car.
Yeah, certainly. Yes, yeah, it certainly does. I think it's, as you say, the sponsors should be happy, especially Oracle and Citrix and all the rest of it. As you say, it does stand out. An awful lot better. But yeah, that'll be interesting to see. So Formula One coming back will be good. It's been such a quiet weekend. I mean, we haven't we had the MotoGP, but that was of course happening over at COTA, and we'll talk about that a bit later. But it happened because it was in the United States. It happened at some ungodly hour of the morning.
We'll talk about it later, but it was worth watching.
And there we go. Yes. So Russell, you know Charlie. Yes, Charlie wrote Charles on tonight's program. Yeah. So yeah, what's I was thinking when I looked at it back because I'd forgotten about Charlie, an Australian driver. We turned up at Mongolia of all places, and suddenly run into this Australian bloke running around in the Audi R8 LMS Cup and doing very well actually. Was very competitive, always in the top 4 or 5 in that particular series when we went over to Wardos. Let us know if you know what he's doing, if he's still doing any racing or anything over there or anywhere else. So there you go. Box. Thanks for the travel. Yes. Time to check if the passport's not expired. I was thinking this myself the other day. Not that I could afford to go anywhere anyway, but it did make me wonder. Perhaps I better look at well, first I've got to find it first. I mean, it's been so long since I've had the opportunity to.
If it's more than 10 years ago, Brett, it probably is expired.
Mine was wishful thinking. I renewed mine at the end of 2019. Very late in the year. It was only a couple of months later. They said you're not going anywhere anyway. So I lucky I got the 10-year version at the time. So I'm anticipation.
Speaking of things that are 10 years old, I have something for you, Brett.
Mm-hmm.
Timo Glock at Calder Park.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, there you go.
And Bugatti at NGV. And there's a couple of stories around Timo Glock at Calder Park.
Oh, that's
so there's the raw footage.
That's the raw footage.
And I found out
Is that
It
the Irish
plays
driver?
quite well on this camera, so I can capture it and send it over digitally.
Oh, that's good. Well, if you got something that'll play it, because we've obviously got there's quite a few things sort of floating around. I found a few things that like that I had. I found the original show footage. Unfortunately, not the raw footage, but I found the original show footage of the show from Le Mans and from Montleray, and we might actually show that next week. I still can't find the show that we did from the Goodwood Festival of Speed. I'd love to find that again, because I haven't seen or heard anything of that now for well over 10 years. It was one of those things we put it to. I had it at one stage. It was online somewhere and it just sort of disappeared. So, but I mean, there's so much. There's boxes and boxes and boxes of tapes. That,
Stuart, you are smiling in trepidation. Would it need heavily editing, that particular footage? You said it was pretty raw. Does he let a few?
There's some interesting background stories, and I believe there was an email that came around later thanking us for being there, and I'll let Brett speak to that. But some of it is how quickly Timo picked up the ability to have a Toyota up on two wheels down the...
right. Yes, that's right.
Yep.
I just thought there might be some swearing
stuff and what have you.
Oh, Stunt School, excellent visual footage. I thought you might have had some swearing.
I wouldn't give up if there was, but okay.
Yeah, I know. But you just give the adults only warning beforehand and let it fling, let it fly.
Yeah, g'day, Steve. Steve coming to us from just up the road, actually. The miracles of modern technology, also from Virtual R. Virtual R, I will get in touch with you. Thank you for that. Thank you for the correspondence, and I'll get in touch there. Yeah, the Timo Glock at Calder. The story behind that was basically that it was the same old story, and I think we sort of told it before. Every time that the Grand Prix comes to Melbourne, the only way they could, especially in the early days, the only way they could get anybody interested from the mainstream media and giving it any decent coverage was to somehow get some sort of football tie-in, which was always very embarrassing. And it was particularly so this day out at Calder when we went out to Calder Park for a thing with the Toyota was running with Timo Glock, and they had, I think it was James Hurd. This is how long ago it was. James Hurd was out there, and a few of the Essendon boys, and there was just every question he was asked was, "Are you going to go out to the football?"
Whichever team Toyota sponsored at the time.
Yeah, it was like, "Oh, you're going out to see the football? What's your favourite?" And Timo Glock had, and we just stayed back, because usually the idea, back in those days, and even now, was we'll just stand back and let the people who are getting paid for this do their job, and then we'll move in there. But he was not getting a single question about motorsport, and in the end, I thought, "Oh, this is ridiculous," and just so sort of went there and said, "If I could ask you a motorsport question," he went, "Oh, just thank God."
Bless you, my son.
So we did the interview, and after the interview, the guy from Channel 9 came up and said, at least Mulligan, and said, I said, thank you. He said, because we know nothing about this, and he said, can we use some of those questions and stuff in the news? And I said, that's okay. It's an open press. You can do what you like. So he did that, but Toyota was also keen on getting the interview as well. And that thing that Stuart's got, that tape, they said, can we get hold of the? And I said, well, look, I'll get it. How do I get it to you? And they said, drop it into the garage in pit lane on tomorrow for Thursday at the Grand Prix. Are you going to be there? And I said, well, I wasn't, and they said, we'll get you a ticket. And so I got this ticket and sort of, got access to the garage, to the pit lane, to the Formula One garage, to the Toyota garage there, so I could hand deliver them the stuff, because they could use it for their PR stuff, because the young lady who was there, a very, very attractive young lady, as I remember, came up and said, we have nothing. We want to put something about, Timo in Australia, and we were going to put stuff for the press release, and all they asked about is this football that we've never even heard of. So,
and you got access all areas.
Yes, and what Brett's skipping there is that the cameras were all lined up in this sort of half circle, And as questions were asked, Timo would face it. And by the end of the interview, Timo is facing straight down the barrel of my Canon XL1, and he's just ignoring the other cameras.
Yeah, we were on the side, and he's just turned around and everything. Yeah, all they've got is basically all they've got is side on is silhouette, and we're just there, and he's just talking to us because we were the only people there actually talking about motorsport. And he was so. The other funny thing was because we got there a bit early, and he got there and he was doing a bit of practice, and we said to him I said. It's hard to believe that this place was, once the site of the Australian Grand Prix. And he didn't believe us. I said, go home, go onto YouTube and have a look. And he said to me the next day, he said, I went back to the hotel and I did, oh my God, you were right. He couldn't believe that they actually had an Australian Grand Prix there, albeit that it was for Formula Pacific. But
and I was there.
Oh, you were
yes, weren't we all?
I was going to say this interview story.
I'm thinking Billy would have been too young to even be allowed to be at a track at the time.
Barely could use any footage.
What was that, Dave?
I was going to say this is, of course, the pre-Liberty Media Formula One, where the digital and rights reins were really held really tight by Formula One management. So all the teams were desperate for something that was not shot at a Formula One event that they could actually use in their own press call. Because of course anything that was shot on site at an event was owned by FOM, and they did out.
They couldn't use it, which
I just find it interesting that the biggest show in sport comes to town, and everyone thinks that a game, where they kick a ball between some sticks for 2 hours is like the only thing in town. It's like there is something outside of your, VFL bubble.
Well, I remember
it's the only game in town when it comes to political funding.
Well, it's the only game in town when it comes to mainstream media attention. But I remember sort of, one of the last times that we spoke to Mark Webber. He did a similar thing at Albert Park in launching the Grand Prix, and he said, and he was the same afterwards. He spoke to us afterwards, not on camera, but once again there was virtually no other motorsport people there, and he was just talking to me afterwards, and he was really frustrated because, as he said, I've got to feign interest in this. Pretty much, he said, because he said, I'm a rugby guy. I grew up in Queanbeyan. I love my rugby. He said, the aerial ping pong, I've got no interest in it at all. But every time I come here, it's like, for the good of the, for the locals and all that, it's got, oh yes, I love the footy. It's a great game. Yeah, footy.
The reason why is
yay,
all they want.
Ball! Woo! Yay, sports team!
The reason why is for us, for example, on In Pit Lane, you'll do a 2-3 minute, maybe 4 to 5 minute interview or a segment on it, etc., and maybe some identification of the product or the vehicle they're driving or well like that. For the news and the news services like that, it's like when we went to Marvel. That's only a couple of years ago, Brett. All the news services are there. Every single channel's there, but they only just want a 10, 20-second grab for their news to say that, guess what, Marvel's on this weekend. It's going to be huge. Here's such and such, and thanks very much. Goodbye. Enjoy. So they're only getting 10, 20, 30 seconds grab. So and if they can put a relevant sports star that people watch week in, week out, that they go to the football week after week and adore, well, then it's going to get their attention. So I suppose, you've got to put it in its relevancy as well too.
And they all do it. I mean, every sport does it. Your audio is breaking up really badly.
Brett, how about that interview we did with Jack Brabham?
I think my laptop's a bit.
Yes, I think you're struggling a bit, Dave.
Your laptop is.
Yeah, Richard. Yeah, that was a similar thing, wasn't it? When we went we did the interview with Sir Jack at his car was on display at the end. That was the last interview we did with Jack, and once again, and that was always the thing that they always, before we did our first ever, that was in the very first year of In Pit Lane, we went out to Sandown, and they said, looks at Jack. He's got very bad hearing. It's really difficult. He can't hear, so you have to speak up a bit. And was somebody from, I think it was, once again, Channel 9 was there talking to him, and he was sorry. No, what is pardon? What? I interviewed him. He had no problem at all. And we sort of figured out over the years when we interviewed him on a number of occasions that Jack's hearing improved markedly when he wasn't being asked stupid questions about football or supercars or cricket or whatever it was. I mean, but the question he was asked before when Richard and I were there with him at the MCG was, you were very successful, but what was it? It was along the lines of, you must be very frustrated that you never had the opportunity to win the Bathurst 1000. Yeah.
Whereas if you had said, hey Jack, what about the Sydney dealership you had running there when you were doing Falcon GTs and you were improving with the Jack Brabham specials and throwing a whole lot of your merchandise on top of it, you probably would have taken talking for hours.
Oh well, we did anyway. We ended up sort of having
Channel 7 and Channel 9 were absolutely ropeable. You could see the steam coming out of their ears because he's right in Brett's face telling him everything. And they were trying to get a microphone in and he's sort of angling his body away from them.
Professionally adjusting himself.
Yeah. And then at the end of it, they got there, and his wife came over and said, "Oh, would you like to join us for us? We're having snacks. Come on over and join us." So we went over, and we're over there at the table with them having a chat with Jack and it was
that's just their own fault for doing that. But what about as I said, when we were at the Marvel Stadium, and they were a couple of years ago, Brett, and we were talking to all the relevant news services were there, all the commercial ones, blah blah blah. Anyway, we're having a chat and we're getting towards the thing, and we're all posing questions. And I said, "Oh yeah, hey Ricky, happy birthday for last week." And his ears just pricked up, his eyes just lit up, and went, "Hey, how you going? No worries. Well, thank you very much." And absolutely answered the question with enthusiasm. And then afterwards, when they said it's open slather now, can we? Who would like to chat to whoever rider? And I said, "Oh, Ricky, can we have you first?" Absolutely. Yep, I'm with you. Brett and I got first grabs of him, didn't we? You've only just got the biggest Supercross champion in the world ever, and Ricky gave us all his time and energy, and absolutely gave us a whole look down the barrel and gave us everything, didn't he, Brett? Just because you actually appreciate the person and what they're there for, rather than it's just a commercial bloody damn all beat up. And while we're watching Timo, how to do
we're watching Timo, and I should just like to point out I know this is my footage because I looked at the footage during the week, but if we just scroll down a little bit on YouTube, which brand name of car do we see down the bottom there in the corner? Toyota Australia.
Yeah, well, they use it because we said to them, you can use the.
Showing us how to ride a motorbike with four wheels.
So we let them. I mean, they at least sort of did ask us and said they asked, and it was like, yes, of course they didn't unlike sort of Channel 10 who just used to just take stuff and
and Channel 7
Channel 7 Channel. I haven't seen the 7, but I know that there was a lot of stuff from 10 over the years that like Melissa would ring up and say, I think your footage is on the television again.
What I completely forgot about at that event was that there was a Japanese TV crew there as well, that had come from Tokyo or
Japan,
sent by Toyota to do a special thing, and it was they're all on there as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, that was
thanks Snackers for we're all pretty familiar with his Speedway start outs. He was successful at that, and he's beloved.
He was so successful in everything because he started out in as Paul saying, started out in midgets and speed cars and Speedway, but he was also a hill climb champion, and turned his hand to just about everything, ran in some rallies, and that was one of the things we spoke to him about the first interview we did with him out at Sandown, where we were talking about his days, and he's told the story where they had the so-called bank holiday races on Bank Holiday Monday races in England, and he said he would go and he would do the German Grand Prix. He said he would go and he would do practice and qualifying on the Saturday, fly over to England, do qualifying on the late Saturday afternoon or Saturday evening in England, then go back, do the race on Sunday, and then fly back to England and do the race on Monday. Do a touring car race in a Falcon on the old Falcon on the Monday. So then he would go there with Jim Clark and a lot of them in those days. Of course, Jim Clark, of course, very famous for running the Lotus Cortinas and that sort of thing. And Jack was in the Mustang, which is the car he drove at Sandown that weekend. But I'd love to find the original footage we had, because we jumped into the pace car with Skip, and basically went around with Jack. Jack's in his Formula One car, his World Championship winning 1966 car, and it's the coolest footage because we're going up the back straight on a sunny Melbourne day with Jack pretty much, like hammering it along pretty quickly. No helmet, sunglasses. Talk about the coolest man alive. He's just sitting back there and with the straight, and it was just, and I'm sitting there sort of, looking out the window and thinking, we're going up the back straight at Sandown, looking across at St. Jack Brabham, just filming him up the back, just pacing him up the back straight and getting these amazing shots. I would love to get hold of that footage, but that's over 25 years old now, and have no idea where those originals are.
Before we leave the Formula One, because we've been reminiscing about all the other stuff, I did happen to see that Carlos Sainz is taking a power plant penalty and starting from the back of the grid no matter what happens, going up into the start of the race as well too this weekend. So it's starting to bite a few teams now towards the end of the season on their penalties, that they're running out of options.
It's probably only a matter of time until sort of it affects Mercedes, because at some stage you'd think that they'd have to. I think they've got one token left. Pete, do you know what the situation is with Mercedes? Have they got Hamilton's got one token left, has he?
Yes, I think he's got one left.
What's Bottas got?
None left, I don't think.
Bottas has used up his full allocation now, so he'll have to take if he changes, he'll have to have a penalty. But so Lewis is still in a reasonable position, but there's still a few rounds to go. I mean, it's where everything else is sort of shutting down, but there's still quite a number of rounds of Formula One to go, providing they all. It looks like they're most of them are pretty much all of them are guaranteed to happen now. So it'll be interesting to see, but that's going to make Lewis's task at getting past Max even, or staying in front of Max still even harder.
It might come down to the wire, that one, which would be great for the sport. Full stop.
It'd be really good. I mean, if it could go into, just imagine if it could go into that last race at Qatar for their first Grand Prix, and sort of the battle.
Usually too should be.
You would imagine so. Yeah, I would imagine they'd be under there, because this is their first. But this is their first Formula One race. But of course, we've seen the bikes there under lights, and they look very spectacular. So
any form of motorsport at Qatar and the lights looks absolutely sensational. Just the lighting really accentuates the livery on the cars. They usually put some extra time into polishing up those pieces of art as well too. But look, it's pretty much going to be some of an unknown entity to a certain extent. Obviously they go around different circuits around the world in different times of the year and different weather conditions, but the humidity is something else there on that night. Remember, you've also got no no sunshine, no vitamin D going down the track, and that also has an effect on the tyres and the conditions as well too, to a certain extent.
No vitamin D. That's a new one. We'll have to let Mark know that it's not about the UV anymore. It's all about the vitamin D.
Oh well, yes. I'm just lairising with my words, but it's vitamin sunshine. Okay. Scapey, he goes out on a limb with some of his descriptions.
For those of us in our audience who might be from the western suburbs, we're not talking about vitamins. Vitamins high in sunshine. Those are something different, if you know what I mean.
Oh, so you're just getting
I'll defer to your.
It's interesting, of course. We were running so many night races in the Middle East. It must be that at night time you can't see the oppression of human rights going on in the area. Allegedly, Formula One has a motto that we race as one, except we race as one entity, also going to Middle Eastern countries that don't have great track records of the rights of, 50% of the population. That happens to be differently gendered, people who love different people who believe in different, men or women or other beings in the cloud. But, I'm sure the race will be fantastic.
The race will be lovely. The race will be lovely.
Comments
spammed by Lulu's going to spam
something banned from that country.
I can't imagine all the angry faxes the FIA is going to be receiving from human rights.
Hey, perhaps some of the cars could run some of the Arab Spring.
Yeah,
there we go. There's a subtle one.
The Arab Spring water.
Yeah.
Okay.
My biggest problem with night racing for Formula One is that race cars that shoot fire are better than race cars that don't shoot fire. The problem with these power units is they are so meticulously efficient. There is zero wasted fuel going out the exhaust pipe. So there are basically no flames. And that's one of the things that we've missed about supercars since they went from regular fuel to E85, and particularly when they run at night, you get a little bit of flame out the back. But I want 4 foot of flame firing out the exhaust pipe on overrun. I want to see charred rear wing uprights coming out.
You want Mad Max?
I want to see grass fire on the edge of the tracks.
Yeah, you want those fire extinguishers utilised, don't you, Richard?
I want to see the sand on the side of the track in Qatar and Bahrain turn to glass.
Yeah.
Good.
Isn't there a use by date on fire extinguishers? Yeah, isn't there a use by date on fire extinguishers?
There is.
You've got to use them.
You got to use them up every 3 years. It's cheaper to use them.
You got to go and get them recharged.
It's covered under OC health and safety. Then that you have to use the fire extinguishers.
You might as well expel the contents of it anyway.
It's a matter of occupational health and safety. Because otherwise, how are people going to know whether the engine's running?
This is true. Andrew pointing out once again on Formula racing, just on Formula One, one again. One Yu Zhao has said he wants 3 years at Alpha. He's bringing a lot of money if he gets in there, and they only want to give him the 1 year, of course. So
might be innuendo, I think.
As he said, does this put Oscar Piastri back on the radar again? I don't think it does, unfortunately. I think that they will come to some sort of deal, and they will probably take the money from Zhao. Whether he won't get the 3 years, but he might get 2, or at least one with a very firm option.
Why would you try and push the envelope to a certain extent, but remember, even if he gets a 1 year deal, he gets his foot in the door, he gets a chance to perform. If he performs above his weight or what the expectations or the benchmarks or whatever the contract says as well too, or the powers that be, he will stay on in there. So remember, once you get into Formula One, it's very easy to get out. It's hard to get in, very easy to get out. So once you get a seat in there, you can you're up for the scrutiny and the criticism of everybody in the whole world that looks sideways at a car going down the road. But yeah, you take whatever you get. You just push for whatever you can beforehand. But look, Oscar's already conceded to a certain extent. I've seen a few articles and a few interviews in the last couple of weeks, and he's pretty much conceded that he's going to stick it out for another year in the twos and the reserves, as we call it, and wait for the right position to come up next year in the right time and place with because
that's always the way in Formula One. It doesn't matter whether you're the most talented individual out there. If the stars don't align and positions in teams that are useful, that are capable of showcasing your performance potential, if they don't open up when you're ready to step up, people don't end up in Formula One. That's why we see so many Formula One hopefuls end up in, moving to IndyCar, or we find them in World Endurance Championship, or they move to the DTM because they're looking to continue their progression, but the space isn't available.
Or they turn the commentators at Sky
Formula
Sports.
One sponsor. I'm having the zero alcohol. Thank you, Nico Rosberg. I'm going to open it with my TCR Europe bottle opener.
Here we go. But
while you're doing that,
have a look at the ex-Formula One drivers. Some of them end up on Sky Sports commentating races or special comments. Denny Kvyat.
And as Dave was saying, it's a lovely segue into the fact that Romain Grosjean has completed his Rookie of the Year passes, or those rookie passes at Indianapolis. He didn't do this year's Indy 500. He sort of was a bit wary and wanted to sort of have a look at the whole oval thing first. Eventually, did run the ovals, but now both him and Jimmy Johnson have said yes, they've made the commitment that they're going to run at the Indy 500 next year, and both of them went out and had tests, and after the tests, Romain Grosjean spoke to the media about his impressions of running at the famous Brickyard.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's something special running at IMS. It's such an incredible place that I didn't know of before I came to America. And last year I did my medical, early this year I did my medical test. And I came to the Speedway and I thought, okay, all right, I get it. I told my wife, and then she came this summer and she was like, wow. So, there's something about this place. I know the road course for sure, but oval, I only knew it cycling. So doing it on a car was fun. The team helped me a lot, which is great. I think on oval you do need someone to get you up to speed. The car felt pretty good. Obviously, we're nowhere near speed of qualifying, but it felt like everything went okay, and very quickly I could get to 205 and feeling pretty happy with it. And then going above 215 was also quite straightforward. I actually went fast already in Formula One. Okay. I got 372 kph, which is 236, I think, miles an hour in a Formula One car. But when you're on own like this, it doesn't feel fast, I guess. If things start going wrong, then it will feel very fast. But on your own, through the lap, it just feels like it's done to do that. I'm still trying to figure out where to place the tool and what the car should do. And as soon as it starts moving on the rear end, I'm like, okay, is that normal? Is that not normal? I still need to figure out the best way to get into the corner to get the best momentum out of it. But it's a new challenge. And I like it.
Yes, that was Romain Grosjean speaking a little bit earlier in the morning. So. Australian time. So, it was funny. I thought it was funny that, there was obviously the question from an American journalist about, wow, what did it feel like to drive that fast? And he sort of had to point out that, well, actually, Formula One cars are pretty fast as well, In fact, I have, been faster in a Formula One car, which would absolutely, floor a lot of American journalists who,
With their pride.
Yeah, I think we said last week there was journalist, a well-known American journalist who, through the Netflix thing, had suddenly discovered Formula One. He was a very experienced journalist, a motorsport journalist, running basically writing about NASCAR predominantly, but also IndyCar as well. And he was gobsmacked with, he's Formula One. It's very professional, and the cars are actually very, the drivers are quite talented and.
I'd just like
it almost sounds like a Victorian AFL sports reporter discovering Formula One for the first time at a press junket out at Calder Park, doesn't it? Isn't it amazing how people live in their bubble?
Yes.
Hey, Stilly, would you say that the brake or the not braking area into Parabolica is probably the fastest place on an F1 track?
When you say the quicker,
all right, you have to Google that one.
Point on a Formula One track.
It'd be a straight.
Aren't they going faster into turn one?
It'd be a straight, wouldn't it? Where they've got the diff ratio as high as they could possibly go, wouldn't they?
No, but the terminal speed before they breaks into turn one.
Oh, there we go. The contentious argument.
The top speed of a Formula One is around about 320 kilometres an hour, right?
Normally,
the average speed,
give or take a William Shatner satellite.
The average speed of a lap at Indianapolis, and Indianapolis is a special case. The qualifying speeds are up in the 230 mile per hour range, which is 370.
228, 229, 230. Yeah.
So yes,
and
IndyCar is actually faster, but only at one track.
Yeah, just apologies for that. William Shatner's the oldest man going into space in the next couple of weeks, so I had to slide that way.
Hang on, Shatner. Imagine if there's some sort of tragic accident, Amazon shares will tank in a day.
To boldly go where no man has gone before.
I thought
does it. The William Shatner
putting himself out there with the bang bang chicken. He didn't have to shoot the chicken once; he's had to bang it twice with his caption tonight. So he shot the damn chicken twice, and you just come out and say, "Yeah, that's all right." NASA which was needing another 7 astronauts years ago.
Oh no!
Oh, hang on.
So continuing on a North American scheme, continuing on the North American theme, hasn't there been quite the movement in the IndyCar driver market in the last couple of weeks? We've seen a lot of
segue. I like it.
Takuma Sato moving on. Romain Grosjean, I would say, only done the road courses this year, moving into a full-time drive. Did I see him? He was wearing an Andretti suit.
He was wearing Andretti. Yes, he was. He has joined Andretti.
Segue for a company that is the primary logistics partner or one of the primary logistics partners with Formula One.
Yes, DHL. Yes, he's replacing
with a Honda engine. Of course, Honda moving on from being the brand involved in the Formula One project. Obviously, one of the two current engine manufacturers in IndyCar. Of course, IndyCar is about to go from their 2.2 litre turbo V6 to 2.4 litre turbo V6 era. I think, is it next season or the season after?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think it might be the season after. I'm not sure because they're talking about
Thanks, Stilly. Just remind me too. I did see a caption during the week. Michael Andretti has now, instead of being semi-retired, I think he's going to be fully retired now as well too. He brought it up. Yeah, so I think he's announced he's retired again, but this time maybe more so.
Yeah, is that a retirement or is that a John Farnham retirement?
Well, he's been semi-retired for years.
That's a pseudo retirement.
Oh yeah, maybe you just maybe it's just cameos in future or something like that. I did see. Yeah, anyway.
Grosjean is replacing Ryan Hunter-Reay, who has been there a long time. So IndyCar is going really well. The other thing is they're talking about a third manufacturer possibly coming on board. There's rumours that it might be Toyota. Speaking of Honda's involvement in Formula One, Red Bull have put out a press release just before we went to air, saying that they are going to continue as a technology partner with Red Bull Racing to assist in the further development of engines, and not, this is an interesting one, and not just for Formula One competition, but for other possible motorsport related projects as well. So you'd
have a look at what Red Bull Racing's been up to the last 4 or 5 years with their engagement with Aston Martin, and on the Aston Martin Valkyrie project. So I'd say it would be quite indicative that, you know, Red Bull as an organization, but also Red Bull Technologies, which is the underlying technology IP holder underneath both Red Bull Racing and AlphaTauri, they want to use those resources to do other things, and, you know, represent the brand in different avenues, in different markets that they find relevant. And, you know, it's you know, that's the thing about Red Bull. It's not just an energy drink brand. It is a brand. It's like the Virgin Group. It's a brand on its own.
Yes, and it's absolutely a huge brand as well, and that opens up the possibility of what that might mean for a possible tilt at Le Mans. We know that there's going to be an Acura. Yeah, there's going to be. We know there's an LMDH Acura is going to run, but whether we get a Red Bull hypercar in the future could be interesting. But we do know that
Red Bull could contribute to the development of their Super GT platform car. Obviously, they run on a common platform underneath, but the development of the aerodynamic package on top of that is, you know, Super GT is one of the last arms races, both on the tyre front and the aerodynamic front. You know, GT sports car racing.
That's what I did find as well in going through all these old tapes. I did find the original uncut footage of my trip to Kuala Lumpur for the Super GT. So I've got some interesting close up shots from Super GT. So I'm going to sort of put them together and put them up onto the YouTube channel sometime in the next couple of weeks, because there's a few interesting close-up shots of some of the very clever aerodynamics, and also got a lot of good shots of the famous Toyota Prius, the mid-engine V8 powered Toyota Prius,
the mother chassis car.
Yeah. Yes. So that was so I've got some footage from there as well. So might cut some of that together, the raw footage. I didn't get a lot because we weren't allowed to. It's a long story, but I got over there at the last minute. It was a bit like the Mongolian thing. It was literally because on the Tuesday I suddenly opened up my mail and there was I thought, I wonder what this is, and it was a letter saying, you've been granted media accreditation for this weekend's Super GT at Kuala Lumpur. So are you coming along? So it was a very quick sort of, jump online and get the first opportunity, the first plane out that I could get on the Thursday and get over there and do the filming. But when I got there,
Brett Hasty Ramsey.
It was a bit of a mess up because the people who gave me the accreditation was the track itself, was the track at Sepang. And when I got there, the people from Super GT said, no, you can't film. No, what are you doing here? No, go away, go home. So it was quite an interesting story there. There was a bit of cash changed hands in order to solve that little problem.
Yeah, speaking of cash,
it's interesting to see how Super GT, a bit like Formula One, has obviously had to modernise their media profile, but also their interactions with their fans, particularly their English-speaking fans the last couple of years. I believe there's been a global English-speaking commentary feed underwritten by Nismo, or at least there was for a number of seasons. But Super GT is one of those series that it's like one of the best-kept racing secrets in the world, because trying to get access to the media for it for so long was so difficult.
Well, people would forget, but we actually had the Australian rights to Super GT. In fact, I still got all the tapes floating around here from about 2009, 2010, because nobody was interested. And I said, look, can we get hold of some footage? This was in the days, before a lot of digital stuff happened. So they would send out the tape, the uncut highlights tape, and I would cut it together here and then put the races on Channel 31 for about 2 or 3 weeks after the event happened. So I've got quite a few of those. They're all on.
So you had a legitimate reason to own a Betamax machine, did you?
I didn't own it. RMIT owned it, but it was all on. It was all on SP. It was all on. No, well, actually, no. It was in the early stages of DV cam. So, I think I'm not. I'm sure I've got it in one of the things next to me. I've got a whole, because I keep finding there are little blue DV cams and with the Super GT logo on it for. Then I thought, they'd be good to have a look at again. But
speaking of influence, and as you were saying about the media and Super GT and that, the old style GTs that have evolved here in Australia, I get onto the gossip first. I saw Peter Adderton decide to poke his nose. I haven't said anything this week that's controversial. I got my face in the news. I'm going to take the full blame for putting Stanaway at Gary Rogers Motorsport together a couple of years ago, and it's finally all unravelled out to what we all knew what was going on anyway.
Is Peter Adderton rapidly becoming Rob Story, David Story, Doug? Who's the rich energy guy?
I forget it.
Just poke your head above the parapet, talk a lot of stuff. Obviously, he is heavily involved in the sport. We greatly appreciate his contribution, but there just seems to be these moments of pop head above parapet, launch into discussions of how things would have been better if it worked out my way, and then just disappear.
Or he either takes the credit for something or takes the blame for something, just so he can get the headline out of it. To a certain
Speaking of Peter Adderton and the Boost sponsorship, it was announced. It was announced this afternoon. It was this evening at
breaking news.
Breaking news that James Courtney has re-signed with Tickford Racing, and it's a multi-year deal. And you imagine that Boost. So you would imagine that some Boost money has gone along with.
Well, also just as big a news, which was only announced within 48 hours pre that news, is that Jack LeBrock and Kostecki are swapping spots as well too, from Tickford across to Erebus, which is just as big a news. It just doesn't get the same headlines because it hasn't got.
That's not officially announced yet, but that has been heavily rumored and suggested.
Yeah.
Hang on.
Yeah,
is that the truth, or did you read it in Auto Action?
I didn't read it. I did not read it in Auto Action, so I believe it. Sorry, no. Look, I think it's
written, spoken, authorised by David Silwell on behalf of the Dave Silwell Party.
Thank you very much. And he's my PR.
He votes for him.
If you're watching, I have nothing to do. I have nothing to do with it. I was very happy with my time at Auto Action. Thank you very much.
If I'm going to court, still he's representing me.
Stuart's packing his bags.
Nova Boy's up the top there.
Stuart's going to burn the place.
We skipped over it before I got a chance to expand upon it when we got distracted talking about Honda. In other news regarding the Penske organization, obviously, Simone Pagenaud announced in the end of his time as a full-time Penske driver. So there'll only be the 3 full-time drivers at Penske next year. Obviously, Will Power, our own Scott McLaughlin, and of course America's favourite German-sounding boy, Joseph Newgarden. But also announced the Penske Corporation has brought the promotion of the Indy Lights Championship in-house. So that's a little bit like, Supercars looks after the Super 2 Championship in the same way that Formula 1 administers the Formula 2 Championship. So you're going to see a lot more synergy between those two series in terms of the promotion, the activation, the integration between the series and the pathways. So it's all looking up for the Penske organization. Although I did see that obviously one of the races that was promoted by Penske before they took over the series was the Belle Isle Grand Prix in Detroit. There is some discussions about moving the Detroit Grand Prix, might end up going downtown again, like it was back in the Formula One days before it became a kart race and moved out to the Belle Isle Park, which is kind of like an Albert Park setup. So a lot going on in the Penske Corporation in the IndyCar atmosphere.
It'll be good for the Indy Lights to come under the control of Penske and come under the same umbrella, because it's been a little bit stagnant in times. It has had a bit of a revival. And speaking of which, Hunter McElrea did very well. Finished, I think, second in the series, but won a number of races and has done very well over in US F2000, and hopefully he'll be moving on to bigger and better things in future there. But so good luck with him. Alex Peroni, of course, has decided he won't be staying there. He's making the move back to Europe. So interesting to see where he ends up as well. We'll try and hopefully try and catch up with him at some stage, see if see if we can find out what his plans are for 2022 as well. Let's just quickly, before we run out of time, Doc, some two-wheel news. The Circuit of the Americas, a lot of criticism over the weekend for it being very bumpy, but the return of the
late breaking news is just going back to what we were saying before. Channel 7 has committed to free-to-air its rights doing 4 days of that 6-day event later on for Bathurst later year with the two bets combined. Of course, you can see the whole 6 days if you're on pay TV. Circuit Americas, MotoGP. Just as much going on off the track as what there was on the track, and this year has been huge on the track. I did some little bit of research this week. I watched a bit more of the qualifying and the free practice than I usually do. Had a bit of time on my hands, being off work forcefully. So there's so much news coming out of, it's got the most turns in the whole circuit of all the bikes in MotoGP. Turn 10's, it's one of the most famous turns over there at Austin, Texas in the Circuit Americas. Some of the key points I noticed out of it was Joan Mir's. He struggles sometimes in qualifying and free practice, but this week, this just past week that's gone, was probably worse than ever. He didn't even get past free practice 1 in the top 10, so he's always going to struggle. Congratulations to Johan Zarco. He had arm pump surgery before the race this weekend. Still performed, but he still isn't back at his best yet. But that should put him in better stead for the rest of the year. Quartararo was one of the most vocal, complaining about the circuit, as Brett just mentioned. Huge complaints. And I think at the safety meeting, at the press conference, everywhere you looked, the riders were complaining to a certain extent how bad it was, and the circuit. And they all knew it wasn't the best when they got there, but when it's been compared to Supercross riding. I think that's a bit of an exaggeration, but they were just worrying about safety. They were saying they should shorten the laps. They going over the bumps. Was very surprised at the amount of accidents that weren't more at a higher level and are more occurring. Marquez was supreme from day one. Miller was really great in free practice, also all the way up to qualifying, but struggled on the harder compound tyre. So they were all
seems to be his problem at the moment. I mean, he did so well in practice and he did pretty well in qualifying, and you would think that, but as soon as he gets into that race situation, he just seems to fall back through the pack.
Yeah, so in qualifying, they're using the hard tyre nowhere near as more frequent, and they're using the soft tyre to a certain extent, using up their tyre allocation. Then they go to the soft tyre for qualifying, which they go all out guns blazing, and then they revert back to the harder compound in race trim again. And that's, as you said, he's just really struggling with that and making it last. Both Aprilia struggled as well too. Just quickly in qualifying, Rins and Mir are the two Suzuki riders, and Jack Miller has a very completely poles apart parallel universe relationship with those two riders. He's happy to give Rins a tow when he runs out of fuel in qualifying, all buddies and stuff like that. Joan Mir, it is they just want to absolutely belt the bejesus out of each other. And I think that's Mir with the bike, and Jack wants to use his fists at the moment. So they had an altercation at the end of the race. I think they were coming 6th and 7th at the time. Bagnaia went past. No, sorry, not Bagnaia. Just trying to think of the satellites. Ducati rider was sitting behind him, about to go over the finish line, and because Mir smashed into the side of Jack Miller just before the finish line, they both dropped 2 spots, and then the stewards deemed it as ridiculous. I can't exactly remember the term, but it was dangerous riding, and they flipped the spots. So Miller went up 1 and Mir went down 1, and it's not, as Brett said, the first altercation they've had for the year as well too. So I think Mir's just got to pull his head in. If he wants to go out there and race, he's got to do it cleanly, and it just seems that Jack Miller seems to be in his flight path at that time. So just quickly, 24th of October is the next race. So they've got a bit of a break now. Jack Miller's sitting in 7th in the Jack's 4th in the championship. Jack is 4th in the championship. Quartararo is 52 points clear at the present time, and Bagnaia is still on fire. So look, he's winning the races. He's pulling out all stops and showing them all how to ride.
Quartararo is clearly sort of, is almost guaranteed. As long as he doesn't do anything stupid, he's pretty much guaranteed of taking it. Things, however, are not quite as comfortable in Moto 2 because our own Remy Gardner, who was in a very, very strong position, it's now closed up completely because Ralph Fernandez won the race, his teammate and his closest rival, and unfortunately Remy failed to finish. He went down.
Which is uncharacteristic of Remy because he's been very consistent all year, and he even said that when he didn't quite get in the top 3, he ended up 8th at the last race before the Circuit of Americas, and he said we got the best out of the bike and we were able to hang in there. As you said, he's unfortunately crashed. So look, I don't think that'll deter him. I think he'll get back on, and I think he'll just probably keep a cool head in the last couple of races because this MotoGP championship this year is the longest one in Moto 2, 1, 2, and 3 that has ever been in history of the race. So it goes well. So anyway,
as we saw before,
off to Magello anyway, round 16 in a couple of weeks' time on the 24th.
And as we saw before, Paul put up some of the dates for the proposed calendar for next year, and there's so many of them they won't all fit on the screen. The good news is October 16th, that the Australian Grand Prix at Phillip Island is still definitely on the calendar, and hopefully that will happen next year. They've sort of broken up the swing, the Asia Pacific swing from where they had 3 races in a row. There is now a gap between Thailand and Australia, so everyone will be very happy about that. So hopefully we'll see MotoGP back in action down at the island sometime next year.
Not like Dorna doesn't think their teams need a holiday in tropical Thailand, is it?
Speaking of Phillip Island, though, Brett, we've got a few
hang on
things
before you go to Phillip Island, Doc. Before you go to Phillip Island, speak about Moto 3. What did you think about the incident, Turn 11, with 3 riders down in Moto 3? Did you see it at all?
You mean? Oh no, I haven't seen the footage of that this week, but it's been a huge big topic the last.
Source.
Yep.
Don't play. Dorna are very, very.
It looks like a racing incident, but
look, it's just
everybody's jumping on one person who they slipstream in the lower classes, and he's thought he's pulled back in front, and he's taken the front wheel off the bike that he's just passed.
Yep.
But it was terrifying just that the number of bikes that went over the bike that was down.
It's probably because the last couple of weeks it's been exasperated because of the crashes and also the death of Dean Vinales as well, though too. So it's look, I think the sport, as Brett's always said, and I'm not going to steal your thunder here. It's dangerous. They go out there, you put your 2 wheels, you're very extremely unprotected other than a bit of leather and a few airbags. So it's going to happen. And with Moto 2 and Moto 3, they do it quite regularly, every single, even racing or qualifying or free practice, they're always slipstreaming, and they just don't have that ability to get an extra half a second, or if they just want those extra tenths or hundredths of a second. So, look, I don't know what the regulators can do to really change it, because how do you stop racing?
I think one of the things that they're talking about at the moment, and a few of the senior riders in MotoGP have flagged this as being, at least in Moto3, and that is, cutting down the numbers that are actually out there, because they've just said, look, there are just too many bikes out there at the moment. So as far as they're concerned, they said we need to sort of pull back on the numbers of bikes out there, and hopefully bring a few gaps, because it really is like dominoes at the moment. One goes down and pretty much everybody just falls over over the top. That's where the big accidents are happening. These bikes running into fallen riders. And that's where the tragedies are happening. So I'm sure the FIM are having a really hard look at it now, and that they will look at that for next year, because it is becoming too common a practice now.
Yeah, I just don't know how they can stop. Even if they cut the amount of riders, they cap the field, you're still going to get half a dozen, 6 or 8 riders. Even when you've watched qualifying over the years, and some, especially the long sweeping corners and circuits and straights, where you get 6 to 8 riders, just even in free practice or qualifying, they're right at each other's clacker. And I mean right on, they're just about touching wheel. There's only millimetres touching. And as you said, it just takes one little gust of wind or one little sideways movement from balance, or it could be a mechanical failure by the machine itself, and bang, it's going to take a lot out. And unfortunately, all the helmets and leathers and airbags can only do so much. We better move on from that, though, quickly, because we don't want to miss out one of the big items of news, which is my prop of the night. It's just sitting there as well, though, too. I've got a Chevy sitting there, and we had some big news about an LMP1 car coming.
Yes, I was going to bring that up too.
Yes, it's a Cadillac, and it's also got an in-pit lane connection, because our very own in-pit lane crew member from Jordan Roddy has imported a new toy, and there it is. There, if you went to the
now is that an LMP1 or is that an LMP 900?
LMP1. Yes, that's the one.
What year is that?
That's 2000 or 2001. We saw it at the Adelaide.
It's a 2001 chassis with a 2001 livery on it, with the upgrade mechanic.
We saw that at the it raced in Adelaide. We saw that at the race of a thousand years. They didn't have a particularly good meeting there. I have particular memories of it. I mean, that was a very special meeting, and Richard was there as well. I mean, you were flagging there, Richard, weren't you? I mean, there, and we were over there on the main. Yeah, and we were over there with the show with Melissa and I and Simon and Steve, and still to this day, far and away the best run race meeting in Australia that I've ever been to. Just amazing. And the thing was, I remember with the Cadillac, we went and they were having all sorts of problems, and we walked into their garage, and this is when we sort of discovered that. We weren't in Kansas anymore in terms of the way they treated the media with the American Le Mans series, because unlike the supercars and all the rest of it, we went there and they had the engine out of the car on a trolley on a jack, and we were sort of looking through and filming through there, and they said, "Oh, would you like us to move that out into the sunshine for you?" And they pulled it out into the pit lane and sort of pointed out where they were having the problems. And it was like everybody was just so friendly there. So I remember that car very, very well, and it will be fantastic. The good news is that Jordan has said that he's been given special dispensation to run that car at Phillip Island next year. Hopefully, if it's ready in time, he's doing some work on it. It's been apparently sitting in a museum now for quite some time. But the good news is, it's going to be it's going to be back on the track. It's going to be back on the track sometime early next year, hopefully down at Phillip Island. And either way, I mean, Geordie, if you're watching, we'll catch up very soon, and we'll try and come out and we'll do as soon as we can. We'll do a story on that.
Well, he has done an interview
Good
with
to see
another.
Mark and Geordie again.
Yeah, Geordie's actually said has gone on the record this week that he's got. Speaking of getting that engine out, it's going to come out again. He's going to ship it over to where it rains a lot more and it's a lot colder. He's got to ship it over to England and get it worked on, and then bring it back, and they'll do the chassis itself and the upgrades and the maintenance on that. So yeah, it's going to be shipped over to England, the driveline, and then bring it back. So thank you very much.
You'd wonder whether it's going to be back on whether it's going to be back in time for Phillip Island if under those circumstances. But let's keep our fingers crossed.
He's got this. It came out of the container down the docks this week during the course of the week. So I'm not sure how long his time frame was on his wait time, but. If he sends it off within a week or two.
Look at the grin on Geordie's face.
There's not many of those containers being moved down there at the ports at the moment in Sydney and Melbourne, unfortunately.
Yeah, so there is. So there's on Instagram. So that's where he's holding out. Because I was going to invite him on tonight, but he's not particularly. He's not big on Facebook. I think his last. Thing, but there you can see it's coming out of the thing with the North Star engine in it, and fabulous car. And it'll be amazing to see that in action. And of course, it's been announced that obviously Cadillac making their return to the World Endurance Championship with the LMDH car coming up very soon, being run by amongst others Action Express and Chip Ganassi Racing, and also. So they'll be coming back, and as I said earlier, I think I said earlier, Alpine have now officially come on board as well. So just so
partnering with Oreca, of course, as their of course having to base their although running a hypercar, they don't have to run. They don't have to choose one of the 4 LMP2 base chassis. Unsurprisingly, they've gone with the manufacturer of the artist formerly known as the Rebellion R13, which essentially is the Oreca LMP1 car. A quick wiki search on that particular part. The reason I refer to LMP 900 is that was the name of the technical regulation, so to speak, in that early 2000s period. So the LMP 900 was for cars that were allowed to weigh so it had to weigh at least 900 kilos. The artist formerly known as LMP1, surprisingly, went back to being called LMP1. And I'm just wondering how long it will be before the ACO decides that having an LMP3 class and an LMP2 class, but not having something called LMP1 just seems dumb. And they end up calling LMDH/LMH just LMP1 because it's number 1 for sports cars.
Simple.
Yeah, that's it. But whatever they call is going to be fantastic. The Alpine not coming on board and won't be racing until 2024, which is interesting. So they're not going to be there for the. So next year's going to be a little bit uncertain. We're hoping to have Peugeot alongside the Toyotas, the Glickenhaus. Bicolis are saying that they're still going to, but we'll believe that when we see it. That's sort of like the famous unicorn, but with the homologation cycle for these cars regulations, this is the point that Glickenhaus made before why it took them so long to debut their car, is that whatever specification you come up with, that's it. You're locked in, I think, for a 5-year cycle. So it behooves these other manufacturers to, delay their introduction a year or a year. Ferrari will come in. Cadillac will come in whenever, Ferrari and Peugeot, whatever, will get, they'll get their season where they're the newest kid on the block. And then there'll be the next manufacturer who's waited the next year that brings in all the new toys and the developments and the understanding and the appreciation for an evolved technical formula. And they will be racing against people that have a 1, 2, possibly even 3-year-old homologated car, in steel Toyota Thunder. Yeah, I think that's going to be the interesting thing, of course, because they're waiting, of course, for the LMDH regulations don't come in until 2023, I think it is. That's the IMSA regulations that these cars, the Porsche, the Audi, and others are being built to.
BMW, Cadillac,
BMW, Cadillac, Acura, all those cars. Ford are still there, but there's still very strong rumours that we might get something from. That we might still get something from Hyundai, and there's also still rumours of getting something from possibly something with a Lamborghini badge as well. Apparently, they've said they are very interested.
The Lamborghini rumour doesn't want to go away because when you've got the Volkswagen group of companies, which also incorporates Porsche, Bentley, Audi, and Lamborghini. It leaves you with a litany of brands with which you can choose to, because remember, the LMDH formula is the base chassis underneath is the same. It's one of four from, Dallara, Oreca, Ligier, or Multimatic. It then becomes the bodywork you put on top of it and the power plant you put into it. And as we've said on the show, there's a fudge load of powertrain sharing going on between Porsche, Audi, Bentley, and Lamborghini. In their SUV, they all use the 4-litre twin turbocharged V8. The advantage, of course, with the LMDH regulations is you don't have to use a production-based engine. So the rumor is that some of the LMP, the previous generation LMP1 spec power plants might find a new home in the new generation Le Mans Hypercar / Le Mans Daytona Hybrid / DPI 2.0. I think I've covered all the acronym. Not
just a little reminiscing there as well, too, because we're speaking about Lamborghini. I was catching. I'm not sure if they have a online platform for it, but Speed Week had some of the 2002 or 4, I think, some of the races.
The last Nations Cup race at Malalare in 2004.
4 it was, yes. And what caught my eye...
Peter Hackett and Paul Stokell driving for Team Lamborghini Australia.
Yeah, the Lamborghini Daytona, which was only one of a couple in the world. 30 in total were made in the Diablo. There was 30 of them made, and there's been 2 of them here in Australia. And I think one of them may still be here, but that was just an absolutely unreal car. Johnny Bow was also running a Ferrari, chasing him around the track at that stage during on that Nations Cup. But that was great.
There was a Lotus V8 that kept dropping its guts everywhere.
I had the opportunity
driving a Brabham NSX, a turbocharged
Honda NSX. The turbocharged Honda NSX. I had the opportunity of going for a ride in that Lamborghini, but unfortunately, because of my back, there was no way that I'd get in and out. So ultimately, Melissa went around, around quite a few laps at Sandown in the Diablo, which she enjoyed immensely with Peter Hackett. So that was.
It wouldn't have been such a bad thing, Brett. You'd still be in it now if you had got in it.
I would. Yeah, that would have. They'd had to bury me in it. That's for sure.
They don't make shoehorns like they used to, do they, Brett?
No. Anyway, that was just that was great.
Did Melissa enjoy seeing Peter Hackett or the car, or both?
Well, I think probably the car was probably the big was probably the big attraction for Elizabeth, thankfully. But yes, Hollywood Hackett, the man with the $1 million smile. I mean, yes.
Speaking of $1 million smiles, I'll just throw one more thing in. Sorry, Richard, go ahead.
Richard?
I know I was going to. When we took some girls from RMIT to do some reporting, and they're all getting photos taken with him.
Okay, yeah. Well, there you go. Who was better looking, the girls? Anyway, but speaking of $1 million smiles, Ben Simmons, get to training. Otherwise, I'll take you $400,000 a week. But wage that you're getting pulled away, and if the rumours are circling, the vultures are circling, as I heard today as well, though, to have fun at the Timberwolves, and I'll still go to the 76ers and take you $400,000 a week.
It's disappointing, the meagre salaries our professional athletes need to survive on. Isn't it?
He's doing it tough. So that's what you get. That's what you get here on Full Course Yellow. Not only do you get motor racing chat, but you also get NBA, cricket. That was interesting, by the way. I really think we need to get the speed gun checked up at Brisbane with the T20, because Tanya Valesic or whatever her name is. She's a very, very quick bowler, but I swear that she did not bowl 2 balls at 145 kilometres an hour.
Oh, Brett Lee will be rolling around with laughter on the ground right now. Anyway, with emojis.
She was look, she's very quick, but there was no way that those balls were 145. If it was, she has just absolutely destroyed the world record for fast bowling for women.
Bang bang chicken again.
Good luck to her. She is very, very quick. She's a very quick bowler, very good
and just
bowler.
One more quick shout out before we go. There's 2 of us on Full Course Yellow, and then I've been helped out by this guy. Quick shout out to Mickey Webb, who has given my everydayer, and I've got my XR back. Yeah, that's 2 engines he's worked on. The guy that's just below me.
He's worked on mine 3 times.
He's done the same. They've done 2 engines, but yours 3 times, mine once now. Thanks, Mick. I've got my everyday car. I'm enjoying it going to work again.
It's nice to know that the Stillwell family looked after Mick when he was doing his apprentice in the late 60s and the early 70s.
Which he did mention in the interview. He did mention it earlier. If you go back earlier in the year, he mentioned his time with Stillwell.
It's nice to know that in his dotage that we're still helping fund his superannuation program.
He did mention that in a different sort of concept, though. He just happened to say he was working. That's 2 of us. He's worked on the engines on. Thank you for the tiny little SVO sticker on the back window now that I can have it.
Now it's got provenance.
He's put his stamp of approval on the
stamp
back
of approval. Mick Webber stamp of approval. Okay, speaking of which, we have gone well over time once again, everybody. Thanks for joining us once again here on Full Course Yellow, whether you're listening to us on the podcast or, more importantly, join us every week, 9:30 Australian Eastern Daylight Saving Time. Now we've switched over to Daylight Saving, and we would love to have you along, and you can join us. You can make comments. You can ask questions. We would really love you to come along. It's on the In Pit Lane YouTube channel and the In Pit Lane Facebook page. Remember, next week, 9 o'clock, Channel 31 Melbourne, another episode of In Pit Lane. Probably will be some sort of best of encore repeat, something like that, because basically nothing's happening locally.
Put your
at the
requests
moment.
in.
So put your requests in. We'll see what we can come up with. Unfortunately, I don't have everything to hand, but I was lucky. I just happened to be going through some old discs, and I found sort of something unmarked, and it had the full original copy of that Mongolian thing. I thought, well, that's that'll be interesting to have a look at again, because it's been
that was a close one. It wasn't a blue movie. Phew.
That's it. No.
When you get one of those blank DVDs,
Mongolia.
Is this work or is this porn? We don't find until we put it. It's work.
It's right.
And that's a shoot. Okay, everybody.
He turned the volume up so neighbours could hear it again.
Yep. On that note, I think we're going to say goodbye for this week. So, everybody, thanks for joining us. We'll see you to everybody else. Yes, NASCAR at Colt. Yes, we've got NASCAR and Oscar. We do have. Yes, we've got a lot of that lying around. It's probably all on SVHS, or most of it would be on SVHS, I would imagine.
Does that make it stock footage?
It would be stock footage, yes, very much stock car footage. Okay, we'll see you.
Just wouldn't want to be laying around doing anything else, would you?
No. We will see you next week.
Have a great week.
Next week. Have a great week, everyone. We'll catch you later. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.